Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Doors to Success. My name is Malik.
And I am Tyrese.
We're both your hosts. Today's episode is all about the education industry from two different sides of the continent of North America, the United States and Canada. We're here to discuss our own experience with the emerging topics of social media and education, benefits of education, the structure of the industry, mental health, and much more. So, to get us started, I know that we both come from different backgrounds. Tyrese growing up in the States, I grew up mostly in the Middle East and then Canada. So, we have different backgrounds on education. So, I want us to start by talking more about social media and education. So, Tyrese, I want to ask you this question first. I know that we're not too far off from in terms of growing up in the same generation. We're both Generation Z or Z, whatever you want to say it.
Uh-huh.
I feel like those 4 years or 4 or 5 years of gap between us, in terms of graduating high school, had so many developments within social media. And I wanted to hear about your experience in terms of like, how did social media really add on to your experience in high school, middle school?
Dang, well, you're really jogging my memory right now with this. But I like to look back at it, and I think now this helps me out a lot more as I was just out with some high school friends the other day for dinner. But as I look back on high school, again, we're 4 years apart. We're not that far off. As I look back though, knowing how much COVID changed your experience to where I didn't have to deal with that, let alone the types of behaviors and then just where the education system is at right now. It was a lot of similarities, but again, differences along the way. I remember my freshman year, I'm gonna sound real ancient. It was 2015 and 2016. I sound like a dinosaur. Like that was almost 10 years ago.
Old
But
head. Yeah.
we were still using paper and pen for a lot of stuff. Maybe up until April of that school year was when they wanted to like use us as these like lab rats for implementing laptops in our schools. I know some people have tablets now, so I had to like think real hard about that one. But they were monitored laptops in this way, and we have to use them for specific like not all teachers implement this, but again, homework, but also like some standardized testing and other school projects as well. But not just much the devices that were handed out, but even social media wise, it was still very, very different. I mean, that's when Instagram started to like get its chokehold on the world in a way. Trying to think back to 2016. Everyone says that's like the golden year. Arguably, mine was 2017, but 2016, it education wasn't really in your face like that from what I can remember. Like people would use like YouTube for like help to study with like classes and to learn something that their teacher obviously wasn't teaching. But now fast forwarding till 2024, you have so much more of an outlet to like learn stuff because now like I know like I have a little sister, she's looking up stuff on TikTok, she's maybe seen a reel that comes across Instagram. I think well it's like this
Yeah.
other thing too. It's like I forget the one app where you get to learn like different language, Duolingo, right? Duolingo. I think that's what it's called. Not sure. But in
Yes,
this case,
Duolingo. I'm currently
yeah,
using it. I have a 4-day streak, so let's see if I can keep that up.
right. Yeah, I've been learning French on there. So, but anyways, it's like so different now with the access that kids have to stuff, and not even really kids. I would say more of the world. You have so much access to where you're not just depending on fate to get you through in your education. Like you have so much tools to do research, to work on like math problems if you're like a regular student, or even for history. All it takes is just like one click on YouTube and a bunch of educational platforms, or at times maybe podcasts or even TED Talks in this case would sit there and break everything down for you if it draws stuff down the line, of course. But it's so different now with just the access that you have compared to the access I had in 2016 when that was kind of like the trial, the 7-day trial. But now it's just like full fledged. You get a subscription and you just go with it, you know? So,
Yeah, like 4 years, so many things happened. Like I think by grade nine for me was halfway through grade nine, COVID started. So like that kind of just like took me so off guard. Um, really off topic, but the last day before schools like were stopped for a bit, um, before like lockdown started, we had a potluck. So like we brought food and we were like sharing food and stuff, and we just didn't know how serious it was, and like it was just really interesting. Vividly remember just the whole really slow it felt really slow because it took them about a month to figure out that they needed to start like actually teaching us information. It was just they started implementing on our online platform certain things, and it was just really weird and interesting to see how they finally caught on to this, online learning thing. I mean, logging on Zoom, I didn't know how to like unmute, or like I didn't know how to use all these things. I was really confused because I think I hadn't really used Google Meets. It was not really a thing. Only used it to if I wanted to watch a movie with my friends. So it was like
oh,
now
wow.
it was turning into this thing where I have to log on and kind of like listen to teachers talk, and thinking back, I'm like I had a great attention span because there's no way I could sit now for 2 hours like having to focus that well and participate, and just kind of like it was just really interesting. It was a very frustrating first year of high school because people always talk about, their years of high school.
Think I was just discussing this with my mom earlier, and I was talking about it how during COVID, like academically, I did just fine. But I feel like that helped prepared me going back to school, where even if things were online, like let's say I had to like take notes for a class, and all I had to hear was I didn't even have to look at the professor, depending on what kind of class I was in. Like if I was in a bigger classroom at Penn State, you didn't really have to interact with the professor a lot. You could just sit there the whole time, eat some Cheetos, take some notes. But I feel like doing that during COVID a minute ago and coming back into school, like I didn't struggle in terms of adjusting back after a while. But it's kind of crazy as I was reading this earlier from Spectrum, but I can imagine for you guys, your age group going back to high school, did you know that like 94% of kids now have like digital devices in school to where paper and pen are just out of the equation?
Yeah, it's insane. Like I think grade 12 for me was class of 2023, so it was a year ago. And I remember just buying notebooks but not really using them because everything was just online. And I mean, obviously high school is meant to prepare you for university, and I think for me it's easier to learn by writing, so I take notes writing. I don't type it. Um, so that's kind of like what I do. And then also university exams, even essays, you can't use your device. Like that's prohibited. So, I'm not sure how they're gonna be able to like implement that, but that's like the most important part, high school, prepare you for your post-secondary. We'll see, like advancements always happen. You never know. I feel like in 5 years they'll start having devices in university exams. Like they'll find ways to monitor students during exams. But even then, like during COVID, that was the only option. So people would write their exams and then it would be online. And so you couldn't really monitor cheating. You could put some restrictions in terms of, okay, you're going to answer one question at a time and you can't go back. But, sometimes that also never really fully guaranteed um, academic honesty. So you never know.
Of course, and I look back on those things, and it's crazy when I think it was maybe a professor or one of my classmates told me, we were in the same major, but this was maybe potentially one of his other like gen eds at the time. But I remember he told me that this one professor he had allows like open book for all of their tests. And he broke it down for me, explaining how in the real world, you're not gonna have to take a test to memorize specific jobs you go into or just things in general. Like you'd have to figure it out on your own. Like you don't have to sit here and circle A or circle C or true or false. And it kind of stuck to me. And some classes I did have where a lot of it was open book or professors, let's just say they had other jobs, stuff on the side to make ends meet. A lot of them would give out these exams, but they would say, yeah, it's just open until Sunday at 8 o'clock, and you could take it at any time you want to. So it's like, okay, if I get an A on this exam and Canvas, if I remember what it was called, like our grading system, especially we had homework and testing, then I can just get this test out the way, get an A real quick, and keep life moving. It was bittersweet, but things are so like technologically advanced now, where it makes it so much more convenient to at times get stuff done and to keep the education cycle like rolling. I think for me now, I'm looking at that when I'm now maybe taking a year off in this next academic year in a month, going back in 2025 fall next year. And if I have to do like grad school online, whatever university I end up at, hopefully my job can pay for it, then I'll have to do everything online again. And it'll be like, dang, I did this during COVID. Or dang,
Nostalgia.
my last semester, last year when I was just like pretty much hybrid, before I walked the stage. So yeah, I mean that 94%, that's a huge percentage, but that just goes to show you how fast the world is moving, and it's mad impressive.
Speaking of just kind of like access to technology and all that, obviously we're noticing that access to technology is improving in so many different areas. I mean, almost every household has some sort of access to a device of some sort. But you never really know. There are certain areas, and unfortunately, because of different economic standpoints, access isn't really guaranteed. And so I remember even during COVID, my school or just the school board that I was a part of, they distributed Chromebooks. They lent it to students who needed it because really, you're consuming your laptops like health. Literally, you're on it almost all day. Whether it's not even, you didn't have to worry about your laptop's health, outside of just like attending classes or doing your homework, but now you're attending classes and doing your homework on your laptop. So, especially people who aren't really able to afford buying a new laptop. So, that was a good thing, but we can really look at it. The Northwest Evaluation Association released a paper analyzing just some different long COVID related statistics and just the drastic drop in certain sort of access to these devices or just access to education in general decreased the learning that was occurring in different across different races, backgrounds, and we obviously know the intersectionality and just the different levels of discrimination can really impact people's access to certain things just based on where they stand and how they are in terms of society. So we can really see just the impact. Everything kind of went downhill.
So Malik, let me ask you, how do you feel about AI and how it's moved so much within the last year, even though AI was very present within the last 20 years at
Yeah.
that. How do you think of it now in 2024 with the advancements that it has made?
This is a interesting question because I'm taking the summer course, uh, just Literally, it's the first year it's ever being taught at my university. It's called Understanding Artificial Intelligence. And we're really starting to look into just how AI really emerged, not even, a few years ago, like in 1960. Um, and so I feel like AI, it's kind of an inevitable reality. Like you can't really stop it now at this point. Just chat GPT and everything. So the best thing for human beings to do is to learn to live with it. And now like we have those systems, those large language models like ChatGPT and you have like Google Gemini. You have all these AI is literally Siri. I could literally talk to Siri right now. That's AI. Like
Right.
yeah, like and the worst thing you can do is ultimately control everything and look at it like it's a terrible development. So I feel like in the education system, AI can make or break it. And there's a really fine line where I'm not going to control AI so much to the point it's non-existent or it's just being too controlled that you can't really have any advancements in it because people looked at technological advancements in that way. They shunned it. They said, "Okay, no, we don't like phones." But then, phones can easily you can easily access so many things. Okay, no, we don't like the use of social media. That's fine, but there are benefits to social media. So, it's kind of like a, you know, AI can do so much, but it can also impact so much. So like um within essay writing, AI is so redundant in terms of how it produces information. So like GPT, ChatGPT's like third version, it does this thing where it fills in sentences based on what you asked. So if I say asked a question to ChatGPT about basketball, who are the best basketball players of all time? It's gonna look at the words and it's gonna start saying some random names. So I don't think that AI is as smart as human beings to start answering questions to the point where we know that this is a human being who wrote it. But I feel like we have to be able to find ways to leverage the use of AI where we can use it and also not completely disregard it. Like, yeah, there's I could go on about this.
Yeah, it's funny you think about it because if they're spitting out random greats like that, goats, as you might say, it's crazy how AI could get more subjective than a human. So
Yeah.
it's just funny to me as a basketball dude, but hey,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way the world is moving. But
Mhm.
I understand the impact that technology has had, but do you think people prioritize it in the right ways, or do you think it kind of hinders people, and maybe that's why there's a drop in common sense, as you could say. So, what do you think about that?
Okay, so I think that unfortunately AI is making us more reliable on certain things. Um, like if I'm stuck on something, okay, I'm gonna talk to my thinking buddy, where really you're not critically thinking, you're not problem solving by yourself. And also, like, there's a danger with completely relying on AI for that sort. I actually found out like a few days ago that the second version of ChatGPT, which is no longer kind of like on ChatGPT, if you go right now, it was trained based on Reddit, information that came from Reddit. So like all the different things that AI knew about on the second version, Reddit was the one that was like all the information that yeah, so if you think about Reddit, you know what I'm talking about. Like Reddit is just like brain rot of just generations. People just spit random stuff on there, memes. So you don't really want to go on Reddit unless you're trying to empty your mind. So for people to seek knowledge from ChatGPT version 2 and I would say Wikipedia is even more credible at this point. Like
Oh yeah, for sure. I always hate the way schools like painted Wikipedia is like, don't use that. That's
yeah.
bad. That's not credible. But if you look at a Wikipedia page, scroll all the way to the bottom, they will list their sources right there. Now, obviously, some moron can go on Wikipedia and start editing it out because I've seen stuff before where let's point out, I don't know, like the Philadelphia Eagles in this case. Like, let's say a player has a bad game. I don't know if it specifically was Philly or somebody, but my one friend like screenshot something on social media one time, just like ripping the dude up, saying like you can't be this desperate to hate on someone like this. But they went on a player's Wikipedia page. I don't know if it was locked or not, but they wrote down some, yeah, he's a bum, he's da 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 son. And I'm sitting there like, how do you have all the time in the world to do that? But Wiki is used for good, but also can be bad within itself where people get in their emotions and start trying to, I don't want to say slander, but more just so they take it to another level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like, I mean, I high school, like teachers always said reliable sources. And so Wikipedia, like ChatGPT now, was the most shunned platform for essays or even just information in general. But I noticed this my first year of university. Professors would say what you said, like refer to the sources that are on the Wikipedia site, just to see like if the information you're getting is credible. You don't want to refer to Wikipedia for um, research, like most of your research paper based on Wikipedia, like basic information, like if you're looking for someone's birth date, Wikipedia, like, so just yeah, it's just chat like AI and just like reliable sources are really important. And now people, for you to say like the news on TikTok, I feel like that's really what the generation is going to be like referring to TikTok. I mean, funny thing is, people are starting to even stray away from just language, academic language, or professional or formal language in papers, where it's like at this point, why are you doing that? We had to pure edit certain things, and the person that was pure editing was writing like gonna, gotta. I was like, okay,
Oh God, I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
see, as a writer, I'm just like, okay, you don't do that. Like,
yes,
you
I
state the
know.
names and how they are. Like, even if someone has a nickname, you can't say that.
No, it's bad because when I mentioned that, I was like, great job on this, blah blah. I was using the sandwich method of feedback. I was being
Right,
so nice. And that person was like, "What do you mean it's not a formal paper? I'm not writing an essay. I know it is a response for class, but at the same time, like, you know, just it's a university course. So at this point, like, why are you using gonna, gotta? Like, just use the full thing. Don't use
right.
contractions."
Like we're not in high school. Like, be
Yeah,
mature about it. I mean, I get it. I've never really have seen that before. I don't
it's
know what
insane.
goes on in Toronto, whatever. But nah,
It's
I
not what
mean,
it's
it's.
like. This is an exception. I promise you.
But I just kind of want to ask you, even with all the technology and the more access we have to stuff now, do you think it really affects people's mental health like they say they do? Or you think it's all kind of a myth? What do you kind of think of the mental health aspect with all this technology that's around us?
I mean, we can get into the whole idea of social media. Social media is like it just puts so much information out there. People put things about their daily life. People put news on there. So you're overwhelmed with just everything. You scroll and you see like someone's selfie at a beach, and then you scroll and you're like, okay, news about you know, unfortunate genocide or something going on. So it's like I see the mental health aspect of it, um and just like the comparison. So I would say yes to some extent. People can misuse certain things. They can exaggerate certain things. So I can't fully say that I was impacted by that. I mean, comparison is always going to be there, so social media definitely increases it, and I would say it does affect someone's mental health.
Now, I know when we speak about mental health, a lot of it is more. subjectively so where we're speaking of our own personal experiences, but even reading through some literature, you can say, going through the CDC as well. I think, now I think I've seen more than 4 in 10, around 42% of students in education felt persistently sad or hopeless, and nearly one third experience poor mental health. Now, the numbers are relatively low from what I just spit it out, but I kind of look back at that and I'm like, I feel like it's way higher than that, you know? Now, the criteria, it just spit that out in general, but even if it's a general thing and not just a specific region, or maybe it's in the South, the North, or in the country as a whole, but it's just so interesting when you think about it. Like, all this access we have to technology now, it's like people are using it more as a distraction instead of advancement from my own personal beliefs. Do you think kids now, I know you especially seen it in your age group, you think kids now are just like glued to their phones and not taking care of stuff like meeting deadlines at the beginning of a class, or they're just like straying away from being in the reality of things? Do you kind of feel that, or have you kind of seen that or met people like that in a way where they don't really have their priorities straight when it comes to like college and just staying focused, being mature about it?
Yes, I would say I was kind of like a victim of that, especially social media. You can literally start scrolling on TikTok and you'd be scrolling there for an hour and you wouldn't feel it because it's like a black hole of just like continuous scrolling, especially when you're tired. If you had a long day and you know there are certain things on your to-do list that you want to get done, but you don't because like you're on your phone, you're tired. It's kind of like the I call it like an exhausting scrolling, like a session. You just kind of just you're on your phone, boom, 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 boom. It's 10:30. I have to wake up early tomorrow. Like if I don't, I'll be exhausted. So, I mean, I think when when you don't have your phone, you're looking for certain things to do, and a lot of it is just like if we weren't in this surrounded by devices, maybe we would have been more productive. Um, but again, like social media brought about so many things. I mean, this podcast wouldn't be a thing. So many different things would not be things as we know them now. So, I mean, what do you think?
I can agree with that. Social media has, it runs the world now. Bottom line, especially if you have a business, and I run a brand too, it definitely helps with the marketing and exposure. Where if I felt like I did not have social media, where would I have gotten my name? You know. But looking back at everything, it's hard to put in just one answer. You know, but thinking about it, it's definitely has helped a lot of people. I mean, you talk about it, it keeps you in touch with a lot of people. Where, let's say, I know somebody, a friend out in Oregon, I won't get to see him all the time, obviously living in Pennsylvania. But again, not just having their phone number, but maybe having them on Instagram, or maybe we keep in touch with each other. Like, we see something funny on like a reel, or we might swipe up on each other's stories, even if it's just like laughing at something. That's just kind of that connection right there. Even if it's not a real thing, laughing in real life, it just sends the message that, hey, what you just put out on your story, I can agree with this, or I think it's funny, ha ha ha. And even so, sometimes you might even swipe up on someone's story and be like, hey, I hope everything is good, or just responding to something. But people only really post what they want you to see, and it's their way of sharing their interest to the world, especially sharing stuff to their story, or maybe retweeting something on Twitter, or reposting something on TikTok. But that's just the way the world is connecting now. Everything is virtual and online, and COVID really did impact that, as everybody was indoors or weren't around a lot of people in general, so interaction kind of shuffled in that way. But it was so crazy how it was just 4 years ago, and just that whole year changed a lot, to be honest. And I can tell you numerous stories on the stuff I've seen changed. But staying on topic, social media is a very powerful tool that can either make you or break you. But it's really up to you as the individual at the end of the day to realize what's real and what's not, you know. So that's just my opinion on it, but it's pretty generic. But that's just it's social media. It's just so much you can talk about with that.
Oh, for sure. Like, just like everything, social media has its goods and its downfalls. Um, I I can like agree with showing what you want to show. So like if you're even with like news or anything, you just have to kind of see that through the bias where I don't I don't think that anything is not biased. Like unfortunately there's everything that you see online biased, but now you have to figure out what that bias is about.
Right.
Like it is at this point because
Definitely.
we all have opinions. There's no way that we're going to be like, okay, we're not showing them. When you write it, you can kind of tell. Like you can see like what information are they displaying. So yeah, education. Uh, with that stuff, you have to like really dig deeper into the sources and all that for sure.
100%. Something on that's been on the news and knowing people who work in the educational spaces. I know the news always talks about schools and kids falling behind, but one thing that stood out to me was the teacher shortage that's been happening like maybe since COVID came out, but then kids have gone back to school within K through 12 institutions. Asking you, knowing you had those 2.5 years of high school left during COVID, have you noticed a lot of changes within teacher shortages or just different behaviors in students?
Oh, 100%. I have a first-hand experience. So we all know like English teachers, they get pregnant and then they take maternal leave. So yeah, so that's what happened. My senior year of high school, my English teacher went on mat leave. Normal, right? It was kind of unexpected, so my school hadn't really prepared for it. Um, we had a supply teacher, different supply teachers for a month, and then all of a sudden, a supply teacher became our permanent teacher, and so grade 12 English was not like what I needed it to be to prepare me for English in university.
Right,
Um, so that was that. No one like the shortage, obviously, no one was applying for that job. So there obviously is a shortage, and like I was even looking into this. UNESCO predicts a need for like 44 million teachers
oh
by
wow.
yeah, by 2030 to actually just fill in those gaps. So uh fortunately for me, I my job, I guess I'll be able to find a job easier than before, but at the same time, like it's not good. And then there's also this question of AI replacing teachers, which I don't know, and I don't think that's gonna happen. Uh, but if
Yeah,
it does, I'll look for another job.
they're calling for some jobs like heads in general. Like it could wipe out a lot of industries. You think about like journalism. If an AI can write about something and pick up on like a game recap or news down the line of an event, that can be pretty scary. Now they're talking about. I've heard some things too in like restaurants and robots serving food and stuff. Now that automatically deletes out that maybe that young teenager serving food at their local diner. I've even heard something crazier within football, like American football in this case, of AI robots replacing like assistant coaches on the sideline. And I'm like, what the, it's it's so crazy when you think about that, and they predicted this in so many movies growing up. I remember like I, Robot, and I don't know if you remember Wall-E from Disney, like in terms of how like civilization would be in like the future. And it's crazy how like these movies were predicting this, and it was like satirical, but what's even satire anymore? That hits pretty deep, doesn't it? So yeah.
Exactly. I mean, like even just researching about like AI taking over schools or just the education system. Apparently, South Korea is that's according to like the Education 4.0 article about just that vision of Education 4.0. South Korea is unveiling plans to introduce AI-powered digital textbooks in local elementary and secondary schools starting in 2025. So that's actually next year. And the next year starts in, if I'm doing my math right, in about 4 or 5 months. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. Well, they'll have AI powered textbooks. So yeah, good luck to all the teachers.
Now, you bring up some key words like textbooks and university, and you being 1 year out of high school already, what was the transition like going from, again, high school where it's like child's play into the young corporate world of college, if I like to put it like that? What was the structure kind of like for you, and some of the similarities, differences with the education, socially, the structure, if you're willing to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I know you can agree, like, I like the ability to schedule my classes in different times, like, you can you can really just kind of pick a class or all of your classes after 9 AM, so you don't have to wake up early. That's kind of a thing, or you can pick it later, just kind of adjusting your schedule, so I like that, but it is a shift in terms of the expectations. Unfortunately, like the program that I'm in, very subjective in terms of essay writing. So whatever you submit, it's not guaranteed to be liked by the other teaching assistant or the professor that you're submitting to. So you kind of have to know the preferences, understand. It's like you're writing the essay kind of to market yourself. Like you have to market
Right.
yourself in that paper. Yeah, I think getting my first paper back, I was shocked. I thought like I did really good in that paper, but apparently not. So I really had to adjust and look at different resources. What about you?
Yeah. Um, my freshman year, ooh, that was like 5 years ago at this point, but it was bad. I will admit that. I think I was barely scratching the 2.0. I had a 1.9 at one point. I've come a long way. You wouldn't expect that if you looked at my resume or the job industry I'm in right now. But that freshman year was a struggle. I felt I was not ready to grow up yet. I was very immature in ways outside of education, but the immaturity in education I had was thinking, oh, this is like high school. I don't have to study, or I'm gonna just go through college with ease and try to do everything else except for putting my head in the book. And I remember I had so many tests in like the first 2 months where it was straight up like 50s, 40s, and I was taking like IT classes, math classes, and I'm like, it hit me hard. And I finished out the semester with a decent amount of B's and C's at my first school, and then once I kind of transferred out, came closer to home and did the community college route for a little bit way before COVID hit, it was still a struggle, but COVID helped save my educational path. And when we went online, I'll admit it, nobody cared about education during COVID. Like we're all trying to survive out here. But I got myself back on track where I felt I had more time in the world to do homework. Like I had nothing else better to do except for like staying in shape at that point and just trying to be as active as possible with what I could manage during COVID and being outside. But I feel like I just had all the time in the world to like lay low and really focus on yourself. My grades instantly improved. I went from like a 2.0 to like a 3.7, made honor roll at even at community college is still a big accomplishment. I dropped like over 20 pounds just eating soup and working out all of COVID. It was like, it was such an adjustment going from high school to college. But then after that freshman year, I was set pretty much. And that's when everything opened up for me. I eventually went to Penn State. Um, Halfway through my sophomore year, I created a basketball brand that's known especially throughout North America. I Everything just kind of made sense for me, even if it really didn't click until I was 22. Those were just kind of those first stepping stones, and college really helped like add that structure to my life, if that makes sense.
I can totally agree. Um, I think the shift or the transition, it's really interesting that you had that transition of like a lot of people can't say that they were so focused during COVID to the point where they really honed in on their goals. Um, but like for the difference in our perspectives of you having experienced COVID during your university years or college years, and then me having experienced COVID during my high school years, and like it's the shift of transitioning from like being a high school student to a university or college student during COVID, and then from being a middle school student to a high school student during COVID. So it was like I think that was I think those 4 or 5 years really made the difference in how we looked at certain things. But it's great to see that a lot of people weren't really able to focus during COVID, but you were able to come in and hone in on your goals. But really, just I want to really emphasize the whole. Um, Sorry, I forgot the word I was gonna say. The whole presence of just technology or um those certain things or social media and then education and how everything fused together during COVID. And then it created so many different things. I think for you, like focusing on doing certain things with your brand and that coming up and becoming a thing, social media, COVID. And then it sort of turned into you using it for different things. It became a part of, your learning experiences and going through education. So that's really interesting. But yeah, I think with Doors to Success, we really try to emphasize the intersectionalities of all these certain things, whether you have whether you have social media education, you got your careers to make sure you focus on that, and always like looking for different opportunities to volunteer. These are the biggest things for success, as we say. Um, but essentially, just going through all these different things will give you the opportunities. And us using COVID as an example, I feel like because COVID was quite literally a bubble, we were able to focus on those certain things because we didn't have any other options. Um, but yeah.
Right, and I would just bring up people falling behind. I know you were around more of that age group, especially like class of 2022. I went to school with them as well, so I have stories. But I remember I was like a senior in high school a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe. But I just remember having some gen ed classes I had to like make up once I transferred, and you have to like double back a bit. I had classes with like freshmen as a senior, and you can just tell the vast difference between a college senior and a college freshman it's way different than a high school senior and a high school freshman. Like, because I feel like your brain's a little bit more developed by the time you're like 21, 22, compared to someone coming freshly into college as a high schooler. So if you had group projects with someone younger than you in classrooms, like you wouldn't. It's like hard to be like compatible in a way. And they were talking about some skippity toilet, and I was like, "What, bro? I'm just trying to survive, man. Like, get my A, graduate, and go." But it's
That's a
crazy.
shame.
It's crazy how like that freshman year is really your hardest year. And I wanted to bring up something I have seen from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, NSCRC. Roughly about 25% of first year students don't return for their second year. But then if you go on to look at transfers, about 35% don't return to the same school, but they stay within college. It's kind of crazy how you look at that, and I value a lot who give it a second chance, even if it may not be at a specific place, because that's how the job force works. A lot of people shift around plenty of times, but also for people who college may not be for them, I get it. I understand. At the same time, don't fall behind. Like, if you can get into a good industry or maybe go find a trade willingly, go do it. But don't resort back to your roots. Don't get lazy. Don't fall off. Stay the course. And that's just some advice I would give then and there. But your freshman year is going to be hard. You just have to learn how to go through it, put up and shut up, or you tapped out. So that's just some advice I had. I'd spit that real quick.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the whole idea behind like you going from community college to Penn State. Like, how did you? We always try to. You were preaching just the whole idea of like right fit. So like, how did you decide? Like for you, just what was it like to kind of just go from there to there? Like, why did you choose Penn State? Like,
Yes, I'll take you back in the timeline. I won't mention this school just because I hated it and I was only there for 3 months. So I was in a school near out Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you ever heard of it before, but I was out of school out there for about 3 months. Mind you, I'm like 3 hours east of Pittsburgh. So for me, having family in like Philly, New Jersey, New York, like the pretty much like the Atlantic coast, the northeast part in this case. I'm so used to like Eastern PA and even from the midline where I'm at in Harrisburg to like the Philly, like that whole like side of PA, like if you split it in half. I'm so used to the eastern side and like the different like people that you meet, the language, the way of life. I'm so used to that to where you go out west. And it's crazy because Pittsburgh is in Pennsylvania, but it gives off more of like the Midwest. So it was like a huge culture shock when I went out there. And some of the people you just encounter in like West PA, it's just so strange. And it was for me, it just that was the first thing. But then, excuse me, the school I went to, it was a private school. And even though private schools are way different in college compared to high schools, you can still tell it gave off like private school vibes where the academics were insane. The people there were pretty like snobby, stuck up. It wasn't my vibe, coming from a more mid-sized school district where everybody pretty much knew everybody. And yeah, some people had problems with each other, but most of the part it was about again community, unity, and a sense of diversity. And I did not have that when I went to that school, and it drove me up a wall. And that was fall 2019. So when I left pretty much at the end of the year, came back like in early December, I was in community college for pretty much all of 2020, but that wasn't supposed to be the plan. I was supposed to transfer somewhere else fall 2020, but COVID happened and I needed to save some dollars. So past that spring semester, I just did the whole year of community college, getting myself back on track, working a job. Again, I told you I've been working out. I lost 20 pounds that year, so keeping in great shape out of high school. It was really weird losing, even between that time, losing so much time with socialization, and those are supposed to be your fun years, like where you're still like a teenager in a way. And I felt like I've lost that. So even when I transferred into Penn State, spring 2021, it was still cool. Like I got back on track, grade wise. I met some good people while I was there. I felt like I grew out of that partying phase in a way. And that's when like my brand became a thing and I got serious and I was like, I have to keep a great public image or being the example, because we all know we're not all perfect, but just being more of the example, knowing I had more eyes on me, not just through my brand, but also working in the news. But I felt like I started to mature a bit more compared to when I first came out to high school. So sophomore year and on was more worrying about academics. I was also working at that time, small get-togethers with friends, but nothing wild that would have tarnished my career path. Now I look back at those things. And I'm very grateful I stayed focused and stayed the course. Do I wish I would have had more fun in college doing it? Yeah, I stressed myself out. I wish I could have laid back a little bit, but I'm just very grateful I was able to find myself after a while and really start to understand that it's really you versus the world. And how do you want to take care of business? That's just the most simple way I can put it, but it's really a battle with yourself, especially during these times of being like 18 through 22. And when you reach my age, it's kind of like nothing happens right now.
Yeah.
But I would just give the advice of just take care of all this stuff early on, so that when you get older, you start to understand the world a little bit better. Trust me, you'll find yourself. So
Yeah, on that last note, um, do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do in the future. Um, yeah, like I guess even you talking about parties, um, there are certain party schools in Ontario that everyone knows about. And I definitely do not go to a party school. My school on that list is way like it's not even on that radar of party schools. Um, but I mean, people do choose universities based on the parties. Like that's just their thing. But
yeah, I
you
would
choose your
say
own.
everybody's different though too, and I think when everybody's younger, we're so caught up in FOMO, the fear of missing out, that we always feel like we have to be somewhere or maybe change
Yeah,
our personalities to try to fit in a lot more. But I would say as I'm a lot older now at 23, I don't really care about any of that. I feel like you kind of grow out that phase.
yeah.
That's that first year of college, and you start to get a bit more mature and serious about life. And that's
Mhm.
not everybody, but I've noticed a lot of people who did, who weren't the greatest growing up, but they found a certain niche and they just ran with it. So I think it's kind of beautiful seeing people grow and
For
mature as
sure.
they go along in life. So it's just a beautiful scene.
For sure. Um, and like you can really see the different maturity levels. I think some people go into university and they're more mature than others, and some are just really just learning with every step of the way. I mean, I am excited to step into second year, but I know that with every year there's a new challenge, and first year was a shock. Second year will probably bring along challenges, but now that I got first year out of the way, knowing how to deal with it, not to panic, like learning the certain strategies that I did in first year, I think will kind of be like the keys to success for me um, throughout those next few years of university. Yeah,
Definitely. I think now as you enter into these next 3 years and starting to build up for postgraduate work, entering the workforce, I would say now you are entering the door to independence, where you're figuring out more about yourself. What do you want to do in life? How you are as a person in terms of your interests, hobbies, the things that you don't like. But even spiritually, you find out more. I'm telling you, like you will be deep in your thoughts, especially as your finals weeks go on in college, where it'll really test your mental health. And college is not a lot about do you know the material to prepare you for the real world. It's just more based on are you going to do the work? Because again, burnout is real, but it teaches you a lot about yourself if you're willing to fight to get that piece of paper at the end of the day. But a lot of self discovery along the way, and that's one of the positives about it from how I look back on it.
yeah, burnout, you're guaranteed to go through burnout at least once in your life, and it'll hit you hard. But successful people learn how to overcome burnout in their own way. And, um, it only helps if you're doing the thing that you love. So burnout isn't as, I guess, it doesn't impact you as much, uh, affect you as much to correct that. But yeah, parting thoughts. I think in terms of education, really just knowing what to, how to deal with everything that's emerging technology. You have dealing with the shortage of teachers. How do you want to interact with that? Like being adaptable, it's really important in this growing world. And just kind of understanding that not everything will be the same next year or the year after. Knowing how to deal with those changes and knowing how to overcome and just be someone who embraces challenges and does not shy away from them. I think that's the most important part in education. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening to our first talking episode. Um, I'd say second episode. We hope you learn more about our experiences, and we look forward to seeing some of you guys tuning in back, and maybe all of you.